Welcome to SAM Conversation, a program of South Asia Monitor. Our topic today is China's covert influence operations in India. And for this, it's a pleasure to invite Mr. C Bipindra, a senior journalist who's been covering defense affairs for a couple of decades now. I think we should start with a clarification that ever since 1967, the first war we had with China was in 1962, which is history, and how it happened, why it happened. Why it happened was one of the, of course, main reasons was the Dalai Lama's, India giving welcoming the Dalai Lama for settling in this country. In 67, the skirmishes that we had in in Nathula and Chola in Sikkim, the PLA lost about 400 soldiers, and we lost 67. And after that, they pressed very hard that we should not fire at each other. They made very good use of this agreement because their salami slicing continued, attempts at salami slicing continued. And even till 2020, when they attacked us again, it was not with bullets, it was with medieval barbaric weapons. Since then, again, it is quite clear to the PLA that war with India with firearms is something they would try to avoid. But war by every other possible means is continuing. Bipindra, I request you to, with reference to what you've written recently, if you could throw some light on Chinese covert influence operations in India.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Colonel Anil Bhat and South Asia Monitor for this opportunity to be here today with you to share some of the research work that I have done and some of the writings that I have done on the subject. As rightly pointed out by Colonel Anil Bhat, the China has been following a very important policy of winning wars without fighting, which it has borrowed from Sun Tzu, 15th BC, 5th BC military strategist, Chinese military strategist. For this purpose, they actually don't need to put foot on the boot on the ground. There are other means by which war can be fought, and also the enemy can be defeated. So that is a strategy that they have been adopting. So as he rightly pointed out, they need not send military personnel or troops or brigades into India to fight a war. They can actually fight it by other means. And one of the important strategies that they have adopted is called as the three warfare strategies, which they had, in 2003, the PLA, Chinese People's Liberation Army, formally adopted this strategy as it's one of its policies. And this three warfare strategies actually is a combination of psychological or public opinion shaping operations, media offensive, yani ki using the media for public perception, managing public perception, and also legal warfare, which is also called as lawfare in technical terms, to cripple the enemy from within. So for the purpose, what they usually do is to identify people within the enemy state or state in on against which they want to do these warfare operations, and try to get them on their side and to write opinion pieces in newspapers or do research work which is favorable to China, showing China in a much more brighter light than actually what it is all about. So these are some of the strategies that they do, which is essentially capturing the mind space of the people of the enemy nation or the rival nation, and weakening their will to wage a war, to fight a war, or to pursue policies that are actually not in the interest of China. So these are the strategies that they do. Essentially, they try to create public opinion and also influence policy through that public opinion by various means, including using the media, including using the social media, think tanks. They even use the entertainment industry. They also use technology industries, including say for example the mobile operators in India. So they try to influence those associations, trade bodies. As we all rightly know, in fact, Colonel Anil Bhat had shared an article with me, which actually points out towards how the Chinese trade has been increasing with India in the last even 4 years since the 2020 Galwan incident. Probably this year, 2024 alone, it's sort of crossed about $120 billion at this point in time. And also, whereas it is purely $100 billion of export, and the other 20 billion is imports by China from India. So that's the kind of dichotomous trade relationship that India shares with China. This is also one sort of a warfare, actually crippling India through economic means. So this is another sort of warfare that they indulge in. So these are some of the efforts that China has been putting in. So if you ask more questions, then I'll answer, or if you want me to continue, I can still continue to make my presentation.
I thought that let's try to particularize them amount a little more. I see cyber espionage, psychological warfare, covert operations, which include sabotage, also artificial intelligence and propaganda. Um,
Yes,
you were in your article you touched on what covering a little bit of this, but if I think we need to be clear that these are particularly the categories, the particular ways that they cyber is one. They're very active in cyber warfare. Espionage, they've
yeah,
always been. They have always been. Psychological warfare, um, covert operations, where you don't get involved in, um, uh, these can let's for instance, uh, controlling the water, controlling the water of rivers. That's one covert way of you know
exactly.
creating creating war, because water
Absolutely. No, that is what
can
yeah, we have been seeing that in Brahmaputra, where they
uh,
have created these flow-through dams, which they
uh,
easily control, and if they want, they can actually flood the entire northeastern region using the dams that they have. By releasing water through the dams. So on the cyber aspect that you pointed out, I just want to, direct your readers to the latest April development that has happened. How
yes,
uh,
yes,
the
yes,
uh,
please.
the uh, yeah, the strategic support force of the PLA, which had existed since 2013. In about 2014 or 15, they started it. In about 9 years, they've actually changed the face of that strategic support force, which was dealing essentially with two aspects. One is the aerospace warfare, and the other is the network warfare or cyber warfare, as we call it. So they have worked on that particular. Xi Jinping has reworked on that particular force and has broken it up into three different forces right currently. Now it is actually called as the information support force, which essentially is dealing with both overt and covert operations in the cyberspace, and
Yes.
also opinion influencing space. Espionage, as you rightly pointed out, these are some of the stuff that they do. Online espionage is also one of the work that they do. And the other force is the Air Force, aerospace force, as they call it, which deals with essentially their satellites, missile launching,
Yes. Yes.
spacecraft launching, and all that sort of a systems that they do. So there is also a cyber force specifically,
Hmm.
cyber space force specifically, which does these cyber attacks and the cyber operations that we have been
Yes.
talking
Yes.
about.
Yes.
India is victim of a lot of cyber attacks that have happened in the recent places. We have heard of how DRDO systems have been targeted, how naval systems, particularly the Eastern Naval Command systems, have been targeted over the last few years. So now the cyberspace force will completely focus on these kind of both covert and overt operations in the cyber domain completely. So now the essentially two roles that were being played by the strategic support force has been divided into three forces, and they've been brought directly under the Central Military Commission, of which Xi Jinping is the head or the chairman. So they have been given a much more bigger status. Of course, the reason for doing that and all that is as our internal politics that have happened within China, including the threat that Xi Jinping faced from the leaders of the heads of the aerospace and the information network systems force that they had earlier under the strategic support force, because those people had a lot of information that were detrimental to Xi Jinping's survival. So that is a politics, internal politics, because of which the strategic support force was entirely reworked, and three new forces have been created. But that apart, we are looking at the influence operation things that they do in India. Of course, you rightly point out that the three warfare strategy is also including the water warfare that they do on the by blocking rivers and all that, and also releasing at the time, controlling the release of water through
Controlling the flow of
Dhamma
water.
plants, like that.
Um.
Flow of water.
Uh, Bipindra, would you like to elaborate on? Um, we are unfortunate enough to have um, some section of politically motivated Indians who, for whom call them leftists or pseudo secularism, or the tukde gang, or we have our share of who make uh, the who make the aims of a country like China very easy to achieve. Um,
Yeah,
um, Unfortunately, we have a whole political party which the leaders of which have been um, you know they've been conniving, or call it whatever. They've had secret meetings and secret deals. Um, would you like to throw some light on this?
absolutely. You rightly pointed out the influence operation that China does within India. Let's talk specifically about India, because they're doing this not only in India but also in all other democratic nations around the world, including the US, Canada, UK, and all other places. But we'll deal with India specifically. India, what they do is that they target for their influence operation people with Marxist tendencies, essentially
Hmm.
people with leftist ideas. So they are the most easiest to target and to bring them into the fold of the Chinese influence operations. So they involve a lot of money, underhand dealings, and also overt funding, like what happened with NewsClick. Neville Roy Singham was funding the NewsClick operations, through whom they were giving money to several activists, whom you rightly pointed out, including C and others, who have been receiving money, which is under investigation currently. So, since it's a legal matter, I will not go dwell deeper into it. But it's an example of how people with Marxist tendencies, people with the leftist ideology, are easier, and I won't call them gullible. They are, as you rightly pointed out, conniving personalities in this sort of an operation. They are the most easiest to fall for the influence operation that China does. So they are using all that. Political parties, there are two especially types of political parties whom they target. Essentially, if you look the communist parties in India, there are umpteen number of them. Communist Party Marxist, Communist Party of India, then Communist Party Marxist Leninist, Maoist Center, you name them. There are Susi, there are plenty of them, umpteen number of them operating in India. So they are all the easiest target. After the USSR broke down, it is only China which is the most powerful communist country in the world, at least
Yes.
in namesake, they are communist country. So for the communists' own survival, for their own funding, they need to be in cohorts with China. So they have all been forced to be in cohorts with China. Earlier, USSR used to fund one aspect of the communist divide. The other communist party used to be taken care of by China, but today it is only China which is taking care of these parties. So this is one type of the party. The other type of party is the left of center party, like the you know I have I have to take the name. The Congress Party is what the Indian National Congress Party is what which went and did a signed a
Yes.
deal in 2008 with signed an MOU with the Communist Party of China. So you rightly pointed out. But let me warn. So it's not just these parties on the left of the center, which are, or the extreme left, which are being targeted for influence operation. It is also other parties on the right. Let me just give you an example. The ruling party of India was being influenced by the Chinese Communist Party for a very long time, since at least the time when Vajpayee came to power in 1998 for a full 5-year term. 98, 1.5 years, and then again 99 full 5-year term. So since then, the Communist Party of China have understood that the BJP is going to be a major political power in India, and since for that reason they have been targeting BJP even till 2020 Galwan incident, or the March April intrusion that happened, or the military force that were deployed on the LAC in Ladakh happened. This influence operation had continued. In fact, both the BJP and the Communist Party of China, they invited each other to their respective Congress or their national conferences, as you call them, uh, and they've been visiting delegations to either party. There have been interactions with party leaders of the both the sides. There have been groups of people from the party invited by Communist Party of China to China to show them about the greatness of Communist China and all that. So this kind of an activity happens. The left is the most easiest, but the right is also a target of influence operation for the simple reason that they knew BJP if not today, tomorrow. So in 2014, obviously that came to be true, and I mean now it's going to be for another 5-year term, or till this coalition lasts. So they understood the importance, and they started targeting even those parties. So if you find the statements of leaders from, say, the communist parties, you will frequently see the communist chief minister of uh, Kerala frequently tweeting about China. This is essentially to put out a favorable
Yes.
opinion on
Yes.
China in
Yes.
the social media space. So if you look at the Communist Party's leaders, they will regularly keep meeting and having a dialogue with the embassy staff in Delhi, Chinese embassy staff in Delhi. So these are all coordination work and all that. So the frequent foreign visits of some of the opposition party leaders is believed to be an engagement with Chinese agents across the world, if not, for covert meetings to discuss uh, politics. Even the current elections that happened in 2024 have come under influence operations by China and several other nations. I think recently there was a report of OpenAI, which is the ChatGPT founder, which talked about an Israeli firm being used for putting out, uh, you know, political opinions, political social media posts, essentially to influence the Indian election aspect. But there is a significant Chinese hand behind that operation. So we have also found that one of my associate organizations with whom we jointly do some research work on these influence operations by China, ThinkFi, which is a private startup actually in the technology OSINT space. So their research work based on their observations found that when the IPL finals happened in India, which was won by the kind of Kolkata Knight Riders, there were a lot of tweets uh, by Twitter handles, the X handles, which were putting in hashtags on the IPL. But if you track that particular handle, you find that they are actually bots which are working behind the scenes, and those same bots were also used for putting out election-related tweets and material before the IPL match. Why the IPL match tweets were done? Because they were trying to gain, these bots were trying to gain legitimacy, that they were focusing on various subjects in the context of the tweets that they were making. But what they were essentially doing was they were trying to influence the opinion of Indians through their the bots that were the Chinese were owning all these bots. So there are companies today which enable thousands of bots to be created in a click of a button. So and the best usually what happens is the algorithms in Twitter or X weeds out those bots at some point of time. But in the case of bots which survive that weeding out by X algorithm, those bots are sold to the Chinese for a huge sum, and those bots have already gained legitimacy actually as a organic handle sort of a legitimacy, and they are used for
Wha-
these kind of
Um,
propaganda work, political propaganda work that we were talking about currently.
I thought let me just before we end, let me mention one more modus of on the borders. On the line of actual control, many locations um, you install loudspeakers on which speak whatever you want to try and uh, um, to irritate,
Yeah.
to all kinds of. This has been a Chinese tactic for quite some for very long. But once
Yeah.
in 1986-87, when they made certain moves in Sundarumchu,
Hmm.
our chief then was Jal Krishna Swami Sundarji, who gave first of all we outwitted them by surrounding them wherever they were, and then we used
Hmm.
this tactic with very aggressively, which
Hmm.
made Chinese troops it disturbed them a lot. It disturbed
Yeah.
them a lot, and I trust that our intelligence agencies are doing the needful to deny, first of all, whatever information needs to be denied, and to also jam their system, in whichever way protect the country from all these various modes of non-firearms warfare by
Mhm.
China. Um,
Yeah.
thank you very much, Mr. Bipindra, um, uh, for it was a lot of very useful and important aspects which you brought out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure.